We're currently cutting the wood for the winter, and we have a saying here that says it never stops. So if you live on the countryside, there's literally every day something to do. Mumu, Mumu, hey, Mumu, where'd you be? But I don't want to talk about cutting wood today. I would like to talk about dog photography today. And all you need for dog photography, obviously, is a dog or two or three or four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Azor, hodź tu, hodź tu. So I would like to give you 5 of my most favorite tricks in dog photography. Trick number 1 is to use reflection. So every time you walk on a pond or on a lake or whatsoever, watch out for reflection, where you can take a picture of the dog being fully reflected in the water, and you'll get amazing results. For this little videos of my dog photography tricks, I'm using again the quick collection feature of Lightroom, and I add a link to my video I made about my 7 awesome Lightroom tricks, where I talk about more about the quick collection so you can see how to use it. Let's just go directly into it. So having said before, reflection is an amazing element when it comes down to any kind of photography, but it's also amazing when it comes down to dog photography. I'm using the light box here to kind of give full attention to the image, and look how cool this image looks. This is Turbo, our male English Bulldog, standing on the shore of a little pond, looking straight into the water, being in full reflection because there was no wind at all. If you want to play with reflection, it's always a good idea to go out early, because it tends to, I have a feeling it tends to have less wind in the morning. You also get, as you can see in the image, the nice background of the morning light shining through the trees. So this is shot against sunlight. One of my favorite things to do in photography at all. And I just love the idea of capturing dogs in reflection. Another image I'm going to show you is an image of Turbo and my wife. That's more from an idea perspective, because you can see that the reflection is not as perfect as it could be. There is some trees in the background. The water is not crystal clear, so therefore the reflection kind of is distracted by stuff you don't want to have. But from an idea perspective, I think it would work great with the better quality of water, or if I would have changed the position of Turbo and my wife to an area where the water would have been cleaner, or I would have waited till the water kind of straightens out, or to go back there on an early morning when light is better and stuff like that. I think you get the idea. A third image is of our female bulldog, Peanut, being a water rat by by nature. So she's a swimmer. She's almost an addict when it comes down to swimming, which is very uncommon because English bulldogs tend not to swim. But she anyway is kind of a street mix, so therefore maybe the swimming part of her genes is not coming from the bulldog per se. But that's obviously not the topic. But look at this image. I mean, how cool is that? Peanut with almost 100% fully reflected head. Again here, the water quality might not be 100% ideal, because you can see we have some distraction on her face due to some a little waves, mainly also because she was moving, and maybe she even created those waves. So a good idea would be to maybe keep, if possible, the dog still, and then try and play around a little bit with with the reflection till it's perfect. Trick number 2 is to use backlight. You may know that backlight photography is my favorite way of doing photography, and this doesn't stop with dog photography. So best is early morning, I would say. So if early morning you have a good sunlight like now, a couple of hours earlier, watch out for a good background, maybe with trees, leaves and stuff that give you a nice bouquet, and try to shoot your dog in backlight. If you have very cold temperature, try to shoot in backlight while the dog is breathing, because you will see the breath being highlighted through the light. I probably could talk forever about backlight photography, and I had to restrict the images for this little session to a very short number. So I have been choosing 4 to 5 images where I explain different techniques of backlight. The first image shows Turbo in backlight breathing heavily, and you can see his breath is kind of highlighted or illuminated by the light coming from the back, which I always find extremely interesting to do. You also see that the bouquet turned out very nice with these with water on grass being reflected from sunlight. The next image shows Terps and Peanut playing on a stick. We live in a cruel world where there is only one stick in the forest usually, so they always have an argument who can carry the one stick. And you can see this image obviously lifts a little bit from Turbo's face because he's like a cartoon character. But it also lifts from the background because you can see the backlight gives quite a nice tension to the background. We may have overexposed the image a little bit, but that's usually something I tend to do in backlight photography, because I want to have enough light, or I want to have enough brightness on the faces of my main target, and therefore the background tends often to kind of be a little overexposed, but it's not too dramatic, so I still like the image very much. We don't talk about the fact that the feet are cut off. You must apologize, because I usually carry my 500mm lens in the forest, hoping for birds, and then I take pictures of the dogs, and shooting the 500mm on dogs is kind of a little ridiculous because they almost fill the entire frame usually, and you need to have quite a distance to them in order not to cut anything. All right, then this image here is another example of backlight photography. This is not morning light as we had in the images before. This is very late evening light with the wonderful sunset with different colors, and Peanut running over a field, and only having her silhouette on the image. We don't talk about the fact that she has kind of cut feet and stuff here, so obviously from a quality perspective the image is not as good as it should be, but I use this image for the idea of silhouette photography when it comes down to dogs. I think it's a great way to express yourselves, to play around when it comes down to sunsets and silhouettes, because you can do quite a bit of cool things. I think you get the idea. So the next one is again Peanut, and we again have a silhouette photography kind of style, but a little bit a different one. We do have a light source in the back, and this is an artificial light source coming from a street lamp or so, and you can see that Peanut's shape is kind of highlighted by a soft glow. And that's another very cool thing you can do in backlight photography, which gives kind of a cool tension to the image, still having Peanut fully blacked out from a silhouette perspective, but then with this glow kind of add some drama to it. Highly recommend to play around with that. The last one is again morning light, very similar to the one we already have seen. It's in very cold temperatures. Turbo playing with the frisbee, running around, and therefore having heavy breath. And when it's cold enough, you'll see the breath highlighted by the backlight, and you also can see, usually when it's cold outside, the light will be reflected by water drops on grassy areas and stuff. What's not so cool is obviously this part up here. We have almost no color here because we most likely shoot against a forest with trees without any leaves no more, just branches, and therefore not a lot of detail, not a lot of bokeh and stuff, and the image would have been much better if we would have here a couple of colors, maybe a couple of leaves, giving with the aperture chosen a nice bokeh and stuff. Then trick number 3 is all about perspective. So usually when I shoot animals, usually when I shoot dogs, I shoot on eye level, which is my preferred way. But sometimes, depending on the action of the animal, I may want to change kind of the way of, or kind of the perspective, you know. So play around with perspective, and you'll see that the same animal may give you a complete different result in a different perspective. As mentioned before, I usually try to take pictures of dogs on eye level because I think it gives the greatest outcome. Here, Peanut running through a field of yellow flowers, staring straight at the viewer of the photograph, which gives me kind of, me as a viewer, the impression she's running straight at me. But eye level is not always the preferred way, very much depending on the situation. I try to play with different styles. Here we see Turbo when he was a little bit younger, and even though this is still most likely on eye level, the difference here is that I have been using a wide angle lens, 11 to 16 mil, allowing me to have Turbo very much in the foreground as a big animal and still have a lot of details in the background, which is a great way to portray dogs, I find. Because if I would have used a 50mm lens or anything higher, then Turbo's face would have filled out the entire frame, and I would not have had any background at all. Therefore, wide-angle lenses can do a great job if they're used properly. And the third image is another good example of perspective, because here, if I would have shot on eye level, I most likely would not have seen the foot or the paw in the water because the reflection or the water would not have or I would not have seen through the water, right, because of the angle. And therefore, I remember I was standing on a rock, shooting a little bit from up to down, allowing to the image having part of the image above and part of the image below the water, which I find is a great way to express or to portray animals in water. So every time you have an animal swimming in the water, play around with the perspective, because you may want or don't want to show body parts underwater, depending on your obviously idea in mind. Then the next image is again an image of Gandalf and Momo, how we also call the two bandits, in with a wide angle lens. And look how cool this is. I mean, Turbo is extremely close to my lens, and I still have a lot of detail in the background, which is a great way to portray the two. He turns out almost like a cartoon. she obviously as well, but still we have these nice cold trees in the background that give kind of dramatic detail to the image, I find. And then the last image of perspective is Peanut in the water. As mentioned before, she's a water rat and a very good swimmer. And here she is swimming towards a stick. And what I like about the image is we have here the dusty, muddy area where she just entered the water. Then it gets cleaner, cleaner, cleaner. Very nice watercolor, and obviously the stick in front of her. If I would have taken this picture on eye level or in any different angle, the image would have turned out way different. On eye level, I would not have had probably the stick at all on the image. I probably wouldn't have had the detail of the muddy water on the image, and therefore an angle like I used here from a little bit up to down allows me to port or to tell a story how Peanut swims towards a stick in the water. So my fourth trick of the day is play around in different seasons. So now we're in fall season, you have the amazing fall colors. Maybe in winter you have cold and harsh temperatures, so make use of that, you know. Make use of like cold temperatures, make use of nice colors and stuff, and you'll see you get amazing results. Azor, chodź tutaj malutki. I find it very cool to use the seasons to play around with my images. So here Turbo is standing like a rock on a beautiful spring day. You'll see all the green colors in the background. Very soft tone gives us the impression of like weather getting warmer. And kind of just good vibes, you know. And then when we go more towards from spring into summer, or maybe early summer, we have again Peanut hiding in very high grass or running through very high grass with these yellow flowers. Very similar image towards to what we have seen already before. But here, these yellow flowers really also remind us to the season, to a springish, summerish season. So especially when we look at such an image during winter time, it gives us kind of warm feelings as we remind ourselves towards these beautiful, bright, sunny days. Now, when we go more into fall, we kind of think about fog. We maybe think about cold temperatures, and here is a different kind of style in dog photography, because you can see Turbo only as a little dot. You still see that it is a dog. You see my wife walking with him, and this image is not about dog photography. This image is more about an overall impression, telling a story about two best friends walking through a very cold fall day with amazing fog, as I said. Still some background of a tree. Would be actually nice to have a little bit of more background, but I think you get the idea. Then when I talk about fall, I mainly talk about fall colors. So here Terps with the stick in running through leaves that have been fallen off trees, very brownish leaves, brown orangish leaves, which remind us to the fall times. And many people, including me, love fall extremely just because of the colors and stuff. So it's a great way to incorporate the season into your image. The same holds true, obviously, for the next image here of Peanut hiding behind the branch. She looks like a little frog here. And what we see is we see still some green colors. We see a lot of orange colors, which are typical colors of fall. And with this image, we also tell a story about about how seasons change, and we should always, as a photographer, capture those moments and incorporate those into our images, because we just can add some storytelling to the image. And then three images of cold days during winter. Winter is one of my most favorite season because I like the cold. I like being outside in freezing temperatures, coming in, having um, like the chimney fired up and stuff, drinking a good cup of tea with some honey and some ginger. Um, and it's also a great season to photograph dogs, because the cold temperatures can just add a lot of tension and a lot of emotions to an image. So here, Terps and Peanut chasing over a frisbee. Obviously, we only have one frisbee, you can imagine, and therefore they constantly have to fight for the frisbee. Then another frisbee image of the two dogs, and now here, what I very much like about this image is it's kind of almost a low-key image, right? Because the background is completely kind of whitened out. We do have only a little bit of detail of the snow where they're standing, due to some bluish part of color or some grayish part of color, giving some just enough detail to understand they're standing in snow, but still very bright colors on the two dogs. Like it very much, and I think you really can use snow here to create a good piece of art of your dogs that will last forever. And then the last image is of Kolya, a friend's dog, a little Pekingese dog, that stayed a couple of days with us, and he is running through a snowstorm. Now that's another amazing thing you can incorporate into your images when snow is falling down, giving kind of the impression of a very cold day. You must pay attention to the focus, because sometimes when you focus on your subject, large snowflakes will distract the focus, and you all of a sudden jump to the snowflake instead of the dog's head, for example. So this may requires a little bit of practice, but I find you can get amazing results out of it, because here I get the shivers looking at the image, thinking about the cold winter day being outside with the dogs. But on the other hand, it also gives me like great memories of a beautiful, well, not so beautiful, of a snowy day outside having a lot of fun with my best friends. And the fifth and last trick of the day is show the power of the animal. You'll see that these dogs may have a lot of power. For example, Turbo loves to carry around large sticks. Try to kind of put this into an image, how the dog is carrying the large stick. Or he constantly tries to kill our rubber boots. That's the second pair already he got. So try to be creative with the dog's everyday business. All the dogs I know have something in common, and that's that they always believe they're much stronger than they actually are. And this mainly stands for Turbo, our male bulldog. So whenever we go into the forest, he always picks the largest stick he can find, and he wants to kind of bring him home. So I mean, this stick is most likely almost as heavy as Turbo is. He still carries it and runs around like crazy. I love the image so much because on the one hand we play with the fall colors, like the orangish, still greenish color on the ground, or yellowish, but still the green colors in the background. But then obviously the whole scenery with Turbo with this massive stick in his beak. Yeah, sorry, in his mouth. That's not about bird photography now. That's actually the next video I'm gonna do. So in his mouth, and you can see that Turbo is pretty centered in this image. That's something I usually never do. I only do it this time because he kind of has the stick centered in his mouth. Usually I try to follow the rule of thirds or any other rules, but usually never centered. Um, Good. Then the second image again, Turbo with the very large stick. Again, we play with the fall colors. See how beautiful the orangish brown leaves are in combination with the still greenish background. Tells us that fall hasn't final or finished yet. Winter is not here yet, so we're still kind of in the period of transition. And Turbo with this massive stick again. And if you know Turbo, the image is even more funnier because Turbo is an extremely powerful dog with a very sensitive personality. So he's actually a little, he's almost a whiner. He's afraid of everything. He's extremely sensitive. But when he comes down to sticks, he just kind of, I don't know, turns from Jekyll into Hyde, you know. So the next image is of Peanut. Peanut is not so well, she's into sticks, but she's much more into balls if she could choose between the two. And here she's chasing a ball in flight, and you can see she's most likely like 20, 30, 40 centimeters off ground. So she has an extreme dedication when it comes down to ball chasing. Um, and she can jump quite high. She's extremely agile, much more agile than Turbo, um, and and it's just cool to play and show the strength she has in an image like this because this really tells me a story of a very happy dog having a blast out there chasing a ball. And photography is all about storytelling, right? Isn't it? So the next image is the image of a little Chihuahua. It's actually the dog of my boss, and we were on a walk, and the little Chihuahua has been choosing, as Turbo does, obviously the largest stick she could find. She could find. She barely could carry. Maybe it's a piece of a little bit of a rotten wood, so fair enough. It's maybe not that heavy, but still. Looking at the size of the dog, comparing the size to the stick, I would say that the stick is most likely larger than the dog itself. So it's kind of a very funny image of a little dog believing um, to be much stronger, or maybe not much stronger, but just like telling us as a viewer of the image, like there's no boundaries, there's nothing is impossible. I can carry the largest stick I can find, and that's just amazing, tell these stories because people love those stories. And the last image is of King Azor. Azor is our neighbor's dog, but he hangs around with us during the day because he lives on a farm, and unfortunately during the day he's chained, as most of the animals here in Podkarpatskie. So we started taking him to us in order not to be chained, and then in the evening we bring him back where he needs to protect the house during the night. But last night, Azor knocked at our door, and we let him in, and he slept with us. So I imagine that in a couple of minutes, maybe half an hour, same will happen again. And Azor will knock again at the door, and he will again enter, because usually what they do is they chain the dogs during the day, but at night the dogs are free, and then they run around in our little village. And Azor obviously knows exactly where we live. He knows the food's good. He knows we're kind to animals, and therefore he most likely will use this little one-sided invitation by him again tonight. What I love about the image here as well is that Azor is kind of in full flight, showing his strength and his joy. being outside, and that's knowing that he's a chained dog. And I know he's treated very well. So I'm not saying he's treated not well. Don't get me wrong. I'm just overall not happy about dogs living on chains. But that's maybe just me. So knowing his story a little bit and then seeing the joy in his eyes, seeing how he flies over that meadow just gives me a lot of joy in my heart, because I know exactly in this moment Azor was a very happy dog, which makes me a very happy best friend of Azor. So these were my 5 tricks of the day. I'm gonna go back to the wood now, and I wish you all a wonderful Tuesday. Hold on, I got a little bonus trick for you, and I promise to make this quick. And the trick is about using the depth of field. So here we have an image of Lena, a friend of Turbo, and Turbo in the background. And by choosing a good f-stop, we kind of blur out Turbs a bit, having Lena in full focus, but still giving enough detail to understand it's Turbo. Um, Another example here of Terps and Peanut chasing each other on a stick again. Again, if you look at the image, you first of all look at Peanut because she's in full focus, but then you realize that the blurred out spot down here is Turbo, being very dedicated with his tongue out to get a piece of the stick. So it's a great way of storytelling, I believe. Again, we are using snow as a main theme here to undermine a little bit the power of the image. Then the next one here as well, always Peanut in front because she's a little bit faster than Turbo with a ball in her mouth. Turbo desperately wanting the ball. Maybe here, if you look at the image, I could have stopped down 1 or 2 stops because the face of Turbo is not very recognizable. I mean, we understand it's a dog in the background, but we don't know it's Turbo because we don't have any facial expression. So maybe it would have been nicer to have a little bit of more detail on Turbo in the background. But still, a great way of storytelling of 2 dogs chasing each other. And the last image, again, I think a very nice image of the 2 chasing each other on a stick. We have a lot of detail in the foreground. We have even some leaves on the stick, which makes it kind of nice. We have again the fall colors with the greenish, orangish, yellowish background, which kind of helps to add some detail to the image. And then we have Terps desperately wanting the stick. And in this case, I think we are exactly at the right f-stop because we have enough detail on Turbo to understand what he wants, but we still give the full focus on Peanut in the front. So I think, again, brilliant way to do a little bit of storytelling by using depth of field. So that's it. I promised you to be quick. Stay tuned. Next video will be about bird photography. Thanks for watching.